Good evening and welcome. I'm Sheila Balgobin, principal of Simply Improve Health, and I help people to train better and longer, have improved sleep, and enjoy better quality of life and health using simple plant-based products and simple stress management techniques. This evening, my subject is about communication. We communicate in all kinds of ways at the speed of light all the time, sometimes ad nauseum, but we often miss the point. There's so much misunderstanding in the world. All you have to do is read the papers to see how much misunderstanding there is, with one group not understanding the other, even when they have a common language. So I wanted to look at that again today. I was prompted by a story I was watching on television the other day, where two people who were strangers, they didn't have a common language, and one was injured, and they had to figure out how to work with each other to be able to change their situation. And if you've ever traveled abroad, I mean, you know what that's like. You grimace, you gesture, you jump up and down and use broken Spanish or Italian or Portuguese or whatever language it may be. And eventually you manage to get your point across to the other person, or they get their point across to you. But what I think is really interesting about communication is that the fact, number one, is that 80% of our communication is nonverbal. It's the things that we don't say that communicate the most loudly. So what is it you're communicating to people to generate a response from them? If what we see is, or experience or sense is what we get most of from a person, then it must be important about what we're projecting in terms of our energy, in terms of our attitude, in terms of the way we stand, the expression on our face. Um, so I just wanted to look at that a little bit, if and what communication is really about. Now, I use the analogy of going abroad and not speaking the language and having to communicate in the most basic ways possible. Though when you're jumping up and down and looking frantically, everybody knows you're looking for the loo and they'll just point you that way. Some things are just universal. But there's an aspect of communication that I think that with all our fast-paced communication and instant information is lacking, and that is to a large extent heart. I mean, yes, people share emojis and whatnot, and why were those put in there? Because a message, and written message, just looks very cold. Even if you write in capital letters to emphasize it, it's very cold. There's no emotion behind it. There's no heart, essentially, behind the message. It just looks like cold words on a page. But the moment that you inject emotion into it, you put your heart into it, then communication begins to happen. I'll give an example from one of my own travels. Some years ago now, before the Arab Spring and all of the problems that have evolved since then, my husband and I were on holiday in Tunisia. Now, I speak French fluently, so I mean, I was able to communicate with just about everybody, and people also spoke English, and in town, in the hotels and things. But we went wandering. We like to wander into the towns and villages and just see ordinary people in their lives. And we came across this lovely lady, middle-aged lady, and she had the most beautiful woven cloths, homemade woven cloths that she was taking to sell. So here I am, and I said, "Oh, it's beautiful." And I'm asking her, "Do you speak French?" No. And she asked me in Arabic. Do you speak Arabic? And I only know a few words. And I said, no. But nevertheless, we had the most wonderful conversation, even with, pointing and making gestures and grimacing and the whole bit. And at the end, she gave me one of these lovely little shawls, hand woven in my favorite color, turquoise blue, as a gift. I mean, it's totally spontaneous, wasn't looking for it, but because we had connected at heart level, not at language level, but at heart level, we were able to understand each other very, very well. And in that little exchange of conversation, I received not only a gift of a lovely moment with someone who lived in the country and get an insight into their lives, but got an actual gift in return. And that totally unexpected, and it was beautiful. And so I would put to you that what makes communication effective is what something my mother used to say, is not what you say, it's how you say it. And I'll say that again. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. You could even tell people to take a long walk off a short pier, and if you do it with a smile and sweetly, they may even oblige you. Or as another expression that you would hear from older people is that you catch more flies with honey than you do with vinegar. In other words, be sweet. Being snappish and nasty, people are going to turn you right off. It's like talk to the hand. They're no longer listening to you. A person whispering is heard far more effectively than one that shouts. In most cases, there are cases that are notable exceptions, but sometimes it's not who can sustain the argument the longest, or who can outshout the other the loudest. It's about putting heart into that communication and maybe stepping back and maybe just for a second, a split second, allowing that other person to have their space to speak. It's as simple as that. If people would take the time to actually listen to things, I think a lot of the miscommunication that goes on in daily life and in the larger world would reduce greatly, if not disappear completely. Part of the problem with that, though, is that people are maybe speaking their minds, but they're not speaking their hearts, because maybe what's in their hearts doesn't allow them to expose it to others, whether out of fear or out of malice or whatever the case may be. So it's not just about communicating with words, but using the heart, but what is the intention? What is in that heart that is coming out in your communication? I guarantee you, even if you're smiling and inside you're actually boiling with anger, that's going to come out somehow, somewhere, some way, whether it be spilling something on somebody accidentally, running into the back of somebody's car when you're on the road. It will come out in some form. You're communicating, but it's coming out the wrong way and causes damage, whether it be physical damage or emotional damage. Damage is damage. So what can be done about that? Well, there are one good expression I heard is that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, and we should use them in that proportion. So we should listen more and talk less. Let the other person speak. Let them say what they've got to say, and then come back to it. That's not to say you just have to sit there mutely, but give them the respect and courtesy of letting them speak. That alone, just the fact that you give them the forum to speak what they have to say, is already increasing the level of communication, because then they become more receptive and will be more willing to hear what you have to say because you've let them have their say. So it's also about knowing what to say and when to say it. And what I mean by that, sometimes like the song says, you say it best when you say nothing at all. Sometimes you just need to be present. And I talked about that the other week. You need to be fully present, not judging, just listening, not offering any opinions, just being present and fully present and really hearing and feeling what the person is saying. So you have to be honest with yourself as well as with others. You have to use your heart and speak out of love rather than some other emotion that could be more destructive and hurtful. And you have to know, when is it timely to speak? Is it time to just sit quietly and listen? Is it time to respond to something that's been said? Or maybe that's 80% of nonverbal communication needs to kick in, and you need to observe with your wider senses, your sixth sense, if you will, your intuition, and and feel what is right. If you trust yourself to listen to your heart, you will be able to hear the heart of the other person as well. So I would challenge you to think about your style of communication. How are you communicating with people? What are you communicating to people? And I'm not just talking about verbally. What do you communicate in your person? Do you communicate confidence? Do you exude loyalty? Do you exert such an attraction that everybody turns around and looks at you? What is it? What is the energy that you're putting out that people are reflecting back at you? Communication is a two-way street. But first you have to look at how and why you're communicating and put head and heart together when you do it. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. If you're listening on replay, please do mark replay. Send me some love hearts or some wows or some thumbs up or something and let me know you've enjoyed it and found what I said of value this evening. And I wish you a great evening, a wonderful weekend. Stay safe and warm. I think it's supposed to go down and get rainy again here in London. And I'll see you again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.